I'm just naturally a curious person. I remember once wondering why, if we're using alternating current, why light bulbs don't flicker. And I spent, weeks and weeks trying to figure out why that happened. Um, I still don't understand macroeconomics, and I must have 20 books on macroeconomics, and I still don't understand a lot of that. So, I'm just naturally curious, I guess.
You're like the modern day Da Vinci.
No, no, hardly, hardly.
Welcome to Guys Fishing Weekly. We don't just fish, we hug.
Hey, buddy.
Eddie.
What's going
How
on,
are you,
man?
dog?
I'm excited for today. I can tell you that much.
Why?
We got a doozy of a show today.
We do have a doozy of a show today. It's going to be awesome. I'm super pumped, man. It's going to be a goodie.
It is.
Ed, I'm doing great. I went fishing this last weekend. It was good. Got out on the river.
Yeah, did you catch
It was
anything?
awesome. Did. Got a couple brown trout. It was fun.
Love it.
I only fished for a couple hours, but I fished with a buddy of mine. Shout out to the Stillies. I'm going to give them a shout out on our podcast. They're brand new to fly fishing, and it was awesome to be out there with some people who were new and just enthusiastic about it, and we had a good time. So it was fun. It was a really good time.
Did you impart any wisdom? Did it remind you of yourself when you started? Anything cool like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I did. And it was, I don't know if any of it's worth a shit, but I did. Yeah, I kind of coached Steve a little bit with knot tying and then Kira with some casting tips and just, tried to be like, you suck for a while. You do. You just have to do it and keep doing it. So yeah, so I tried to. I don't know. Hopefully it helped. Maybe not. You never know. I'm not much of a guide in fly. I don't think of myself as a fly fishing guide, so I don't know how much my guiding skills worked. But it was fun. We had a good time.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah. So what are you celebrating in your life these days, Eddie?
I'm celebrating you today, Reid. I think I want to say you have been absolutely crushing it on everything that we've been working on over here on the GFW front, and I think it's exciting to see your skills grow on the different content creation and thinking through everything that we're doing over here. And so I'm celebrating your lack of what would I call it? You're not as bad with tech as you say you are. How about that?
All right. Ed, wow, thanks, man. That means a lot, dude. Seriously. You kind of caught me off guard there. I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't expecting that as a celebration.
That's how you get somebody. You get them a compliment they aren't expecting.
Thank you very much.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate that. I'm trying. I'm working
Now
at
back
it.
to work.
I'll keep at it. I get back to work, slacker.
Yeah, that's your bonus for the year. Enjoy it, and I'll get back to
Excellent. All right. Good. All right.
What are you celebrating?
I am celebrating, Ed, the start of college football. I'm just going to say the start of football season. It's not just college football; it's pro season coming up.
It's everything.
Yeah, we are. We're big football fans in my household.
Same here.
So I've got the start of football, which means watching evening games out on the patio. I just got a bigger TV out there to watch football on, and so. Yeah, you curl up with the blanket on the nice cool evenings and watch the games, and it's just there's a great feel of that to our household. We've shared a lot of good family time out there, so it always brings, in the newness of a season, it always brings hope, Ed. There's hope with the newness of the football season that maybe my buffs and maybe, our buffs and maybe my dolphins, they have a shot right now. They got a chance
It's true.
because it's new.
It's true.
They
Everyone's
haven't
got a shot
tanked
right
yet.
now. Everyone's got a shot
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah.
except the Dolphins. The Dolphins have no shot this year. So
Come on, bro. Come on,
best
bro.
best of
Yeah.
luck. Best of luck.
So that's my celebrations. For you, what are you navigating?
So I'm getting down to the wire on my runs. I haven't brought up my runs in a while, but I'm getting into some longer distances, trying to dial in nutrition and everything for running. So I have a 18, I think like an 18.5 mile run on Saturday. So that'll be my longest run to date, and just trying to figure out the different nutrition while running. I've kind of got nutrition before running dialed in, but nutrition while running, electrolytes, carbs, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Don't want to bonk out in the middle of, well, I'm not really going to be in the middle of nowhere, but I don't want to bonk in the middle of the race. So
Right.
trying to figure out what works, and all that comes with a lot of different testing and trying different things and a lot of different marketing ploys to get you to try different products. And so, yeah, that's what I'm working through.
Nice. Yeah. I guess you don't think about those kinds of, at least I don't. I'm not a runner, but when I think about long distance running, I don't think about those kinds of things during it, right? You just go run for 3 hours and you're done.
Yeah.
I don't think about
Definitely-
like that. Yeah. But
Definitely,
there's
as
a lot
I've
more to it
run
than that.
longer, I've learned a lot more about like just the act of like being hungry. Like I feel like I'm hungry all the time now. And just now, it helps you as you just pay more attention to yourself. Like what is being hungry due to your attitude and things like that. Like I know now, like, oh, that's actually something I always thought was just like being in a bad mood, was actually like, no, dude, you were hungry during that time. And if you like feed that bad attitude, like the Snickers commercials have some truth to them. Like you can get a little hungry. So it's just funny the thing, especially as I've begun to run longer and longer. It shows you like, oh wow, nutrition really does matter. It's much more important. If you miss a day of eating poorly or whatever and try and run, like it's different. And so it's an interesting learning experience. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome, dude. That's awesome.
So, yeah. What are you navigating?
Well, it's along the same lines. Only it's the other direction. I'm navigating my laziness with exercise. I have not been very good with a consistent workout. And, that leads to the bad self-talk. And then you're like, you start like, well, I haven't worked out for a week, so I might as well have some chocolate-covered pretzels. Okay, and then I might as well eat shitty, and then I'll start tomorrow. And yeah, so I'm navigating that just with exercise, and I got time, and I should be better at it, but I've been taking just way too long of a vacation from exercising.
I was never a good consistent exerciser until I set this goal of like running a marathon. I think there's something about having like a big goal in mind and like the constant preparation for that really helps with that whole thing. So maybe try and figure out a goal to set for yourself, a big gnarly goal to attack.
Okay, that's good advice. Maybe I'll try that. Figure out what I can do. Set
it off in the distance. Know that it's
it ain't going to be running a marathon. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, that's fair.
You're way greater than I am. Yeah.
There's other things though. There's biking. There's there's a big long hike, a week-long camping trip, something like that you could set your goals for and start working towards. But I do think that there's something. It's hard to like. I don't know. Like if I was a bodybuilder, for example, I think it'd be hard to just like go and, get my bulk on, right? I think it's people have like bodybuilding competitions for a reason. Like I got to show up on this date and like actually, be in peak physical form. I think it's kind of the same thing. Or like got to be ready for a soccer game. You lose that as an adult. You don't have like a thing to be striving for as you get older. So
right. So yeah, so that's what I'm working at. That's what I got to do. So
I look forward to hearing
I'll be thinking about my big goal. Yeah.
I'll look forward to hearing about it next week. So chop
on. All right. Well, Eddie, who we got on the show today?
Dude, today we have the great honor of talking with Tom Rosenbauer of the Orvis Fly Fishing Podcast.
Talk about your mentor and teacher. This dude is like the kingpin in the fly fishing world.
No doubt. I feel like everybody knows him. I've watched countless numbers of his videos looking for, different skills and tips and tricks. And so it's awesome that we actually got to sit down and pick his brain a little bit. And so, yeah. But today on the show, we're talking about his background and journey in the fly fishing industry, being curious and keeping his fishing passion alive, advice for getting started in fly fishing, fishing up in the Northeast, and so much more. So let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Hey, Tom, how are you?
I'm good, Ed. How are you?
Oh, doing great.
Welcome to the show. Glad to have you.
Well, I'm happy to be here. And this is going to be fun, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Well, you're a guest who needs really no introduction, kind of a legend amongst fly fishermen. Why don't you give us a little background on how you got into fly fishing?
Well, I had fished with my dad when I was a little kid. Probably started about 4 years old, and he was a bait fisherman. He liked to fish worms for bullheads and white perch and stuff like that on Lake Ontario. And I kind of was looking for a new challenge, and I thought fly fishing looked cool. So I, went to the library to see if they had any books. There weren't many in those days. Of course, there were no videos and internet and all that stuff. And I hacked my way through it, starting at 11 or 12, just kind of self-taught. Watched the American Sportsman on TV and read Field and Stream, and struggled for I'm sure many years. Like, I won't tell you how many trips it took me to catch my first trout on a fly, but it was a long time. And then I had a friend in Boy Scouts who also started out, and we kind of learned together.
That's awesome. It's funny you say that because this past weekend yesterday I was out with a couple friend of mine, and they are brand new to fly fishing, and I told them, if I had a dime for every day I got skunked when I was learning how to fish, my retirement would be a lot better off right now.
Trout fishing is hard, people, they want to fly fish and they start out trout fishing. They're better off starting out with bluegills or some kind of sunfish or some kind of panfish.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Trout fishing can get tough. You got to do it all. You got to be good. So it takes a bit. Tom, you've been, working for Orvis for a lot of years, 45 plus years. Part of my question is, I was a teacher. I'm a newly retired teacher. And so a lot of your stuff that you do, the books you've written, everything is around teaching and educating. And so, how did you get into that teaching side of it? Did that kind of come naturally for you? Did you fall into that? But that's a real, that takes a lot. How did you get into that side of it?
Yeah, like a lot of things that I've done, I fell into it. I started out in retail I tied flies commercially when I was a teenager and through college. And then you know, I don't know. I taught in the Orvis Fly Fishing schools in my early days after my uh, terrible retail career. I was not very good at retail. Um, and then I got asked to take over the Orvis News, which was a newsprint publication that went out. It was actually had the largest circulation of any fly fishing publication. It was like 250,000 circulation in those days. And I decided that it was mostly sales stuff, and I decided that maybe it needed some editorial stuff, maybe it needed to do some teaching stuff. And so I kind of taught myself how to write. I've always been a reader, and readers generally uh, it's easier for someone who reads a lot to pick up writing. And in those days, Fly Fisherman magazine and Fly Rod and Reel magazine and Country Journal were located in this area. And so I would hang out with John Randolph and Silvio Calavi and John Merwin. There were a lot of writers around here, Tony Atwell and Robert F. Jones, and actually, yeah, there were a number of John Irving. I'd never met John Irving, but he lived close by. So there were a lot of writers here, and I just hung out and bugged them, and they took me under their wing and helped me out, and I hacked my way through it. Like
That's
most
awesome.
things I've done, hacked my way through it.
That's a common theme, it seems like, in fly fishing and anything in life.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
always used to tell my seventh and eighth graders, because I was a middle school teacher and I taught English, and so I was always like, it's so easy for me to tell early on who the readers are because their writing is so much better than the other
Uh-huh.
kids. And I would always
Yeah,
tell them, you want to get better at writers, read more.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a like a true statement, in fact, in that, in how you do that.
And being self-taught, I I told myself that I should never forget what it was like to be starting out in fly fishing and not knowing anything, not knowing the lingo, and not knowing what to do. And I've tried to keep that in mind constantly. Remembering what it was like when you were wet behind the ears and didn't know shit. Can I say shit on your
Right? Yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah,
can.
so, absolutely.
I'm pretty careful on mine, but a lot of kids listen to mine, so I have to be careful.
Reid has the mouth of a sailor, so
Yeah, when I'm
you're
fishing, I'm pretty bad. I'll try to keep it toned
oh,
down here.
you and Reid would be the best of fishing buddies then, because this guy says nothing nice to himself when he misses a fish.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. Me too.
Yeah, we are our own worst critics. Sometimes I get a little harsh.
We sure are.
Um,
Yeah.
Tom, did you have mentors in your own? Like, you are probably one of the most well-known mentors and teachers in the industry. Who were some of your mentors in the fly fishing world that really maybe helped you along? Because you talk about the importance of that and thinking about, the first time you learned and being so wet behind the ears. Who were some of your
Yeah,
mentors? And
there was a local guy uh, recently passed away named Carl Coleman who had a little shop in his garage, a little fly shop, and he was very influential. I tied flies for his shop. He liked my Catskill dry flies, and he said I couldn't tie nymphs for shit, but I was a good dry fly tire. And in those days, all the dry flies were Catskill style with wood duck wings and duck quill wings and stuff. And so he would take me every once in a while, maybe once a year, he'd take me fishing, and he was a brilliant angler. He was a really good nymph angler, and didn't use. Of course, we didn't have strike indicators in those days, just upstream floating line, and he was just brilliant at it. And he taught me a lot. He was really, really perceptive and had fished all his life. And so he's probably the biggest influence in my early career. And then, you know, every time, everybody I fish with, I learn something from. I mean, I've had thousands of mentors, really, or hundreds,
Right.
anyways. You know, every time you fish with a guide or another person, you learn something from them. So, you know, I've had lots and lots and lots of mentors since then.
That's awesome. Going back to when you said, always trying to remember what it's like to be a beginner.
Yeah.
What are some pieces of advice you would give to a beginner who's looking just to get into the sport? What would you say to them or what do you say to them as you encourage them to pick up the hobby?
Don't overthink it. You know, we tend to overthink fly fishing, and keep it fun. You know, it's supposed to be fun, and if you're not having fun, you probably should be doing something else. But you know, people tend to overthink it and think they need to be the best caster, or they need to learn entomology, and they need to know 20 knots instead of just three. Um,
Right.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
keep it simple at first. If you want to complicate it later when you're more comfortable, yeah, then you know we love to complicate things. That's why we
Yes,
fly
we
fish,
do.
right?
Right.
But you know, when you're learning, you don't want to get frustrated. So try to keep it simple.
Nice. You made reference to the fact that you couldn't. The guy told you early on that you couldn't tie nymphs for shit, and so, but you've been credited with bringing the bead head and the tungsten bead to fly tying, as well as the big eye hook, which is a phenomenal thing for us guys who can't see.
Yeah.
And some other things that you've done that you've kind of been an innovator in fly tying and fly fishing. Has creativity always been a part of what you of your career? And like when you were a kid, was creativity? I mean, you started tying flies at such an early age.
Yeah. I don't think of myself as a creative person. And just to set the record straight, I didn't invent the beadhead. I saw it used in a European early video from Roman Mosier, and kind of brought
Oh,
it
cool.
to the States. I did
Yes.
invent the
Okay.
tungsten bead, and the big eye hook.
Right.
But you know, I wasn't the first person to use beadheads. I just brought them to North
Okay.
America. But
Right.
you know, I'm not that creative, really. I don't think I'm that creative. I'm kind of a, you know, my writing is wouldn't call it creative writing. It's more glorified instruction manuals, right? I'm a
Right.
communicator.
You're
I consider myself a communicator and an educator, but not
okay.
necessarily a very creative person. I mean,
Okay.
if you do this stuff long enough, you're gonna come up with something, right? Something
Right.
useful.
The Rosenhopper.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's not fair necessarily to call yourself not creative. I think for yourself to have hacked your way through it and figured it out and tried things and gone through the iterations of figuring this sport out, or figuring it out even as much as you can. I guess how do you stay curious to keep getting through the hard times and continue to learn new things and try new fishing styles?
I don't know. I'm just naturally a curious person. There's so many things. I remember once wondering why, if we're using alternating current, why light bulbs don't flicker. And I spent, you know, weeks and weeks trying to figure out why that happened. Um, you know, I still don't understand macroeconomics, and I must have 20 books on macroeconomics, and I still don't understand a lot of that. So, you know, I'm just naturally curious, I guess.
You're like the modern day Da Vinci.
No, hardly. But yeah, I love learning, and I'm a perfectionist, so when I want to learn something, I tend to dig into it a little. I'm probably a little bit autistic
Right.
in that respect.
It's a spectrum, so
Yeah, I'm definitely somewhere on the spectrum.
Nice. You've seen the progress of technology, of everything in our sport, the sport of fly fishing over the
Yeah.
course of time.
Hmm.
The attitudes about it, that kind of thing, with the
Yeah.
advent of like videos and information age, you seem to
Right.
have really grasped that and taken that head on. Um, has your experience been like with attitudes of the fishermen? You've traveled a ton. Is it that way with most people in the industry, do you think? You've been real receptive to that.
Yeah, well, I think for the most part it is. I mean, fly fishers are naturally curious, and they want to learn, right? I mean, that's why we do it, because there's a constant learning. It never ends. Every time you go
Right.
fishing, you learn something new. And I think that for the most part, fly anglers are just naturally curious and naturally want to learn new things. Now, of course, there are the people that complain about social media and complain about Euro nymphing, and that they want it to be like it used to be. Well, the world changes, and if you're not going to accept that, you're going to be left behind.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, Trout Routes gives you access to everything now, points you in the right
Yeah,
direction.
well,
I,
not
I,
really, but
yeah, there's things out there that if you're willing to look, you can find anything. It
yeah.
seems like these days. And collaboration is a big thing. I watched, you and Tim Flagler and Cheech do those videos of the fly tie off thing, the triple
Yeah.
threat tie off
The
videos.
ones I always
Um,
lose, you mean?
those those are awesome, and you can really see the camaraderie of the three of you, and those relationships that you've built over the years in the fly fishing world. How important is that for fly anglers?
Oh, I think it's everything. I mean, um, if you want to keep everything close to your chest and you don't want to compare notes with other people, then you're going to be left in a vacuum. And when you share with people, they share back to you.
Right, right.
definitely.
And we have a common passion, so it's pretty natural. I mean, you know, fly fishing is all consuming,
Right.
and we just naturally want to communicate with other fly anglers. Most of us, anyways.
Yeah, yeah. You guys are great on those videos. It's awesome.
Oh, we have so
Those are
much
entertaining.
fun. We have so oh, they're such great guys, both of them. We
Right.
we we just have a lot of fun doing it.
Well, and I think that's part of it too, right? You're showing the fun that you can have with other guys when you build those kinds of relationships, and
Uh-huh.
that's just
Yeah.
something that's awesome. I think to model for other people. Um, that's kind of what we've done for 28 years, going on our fishing trip. Guys fishing weekend. We've been doing the same trip with the same guys for close to 30 years, and the
Yeah.
friendships and the stuff that we've built through that is so much fun and so rich in our lives that being able to help others kind of see what that can do for you is kind of part of what we're after. So
Hmm.
that's a
Yeah.
really cool thing. Yeah, that's fun.
And adding on to that, I guess just the fly fishing community is a place where obviously battled through it, learning from others and learning from books and stuff like that. I guess just what is the fly fishing community, meant to you, and um, how have you leaned on that throughout the years?
Hmm. Uh, Well, I guess just, the desire to learn constantly. You're not gonna learn it on your own. I mean, you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot by fishing on your own, without having somebody looking over your shoulder. And you learn certain things, but then again, you your eyes are opened when you fish with someone else, like a good guide or someone who's a better angler than you are. Uh, they open your eyes to new horizons. So I think it's a combination of learning from other people and learning on your own by making mistakes.
Definitely. As you kind of look forward to the future of fly fishing and what the sport is transitioning towards, I guess what aspirations and goals do you have for the industry?
Um, what aspirations and goals? I guess continuing to increase the diversity in fly fishing. I mean, when I was a kid, um, there were there was one other fly angler that I knew in my high school, which was my fishing buddy. There were two others actually. When I went to college, I went to the forestry school in Syracuse, it's biological sciences, and there were no other fly fishers in that whole college. I mean, it wasn't a big college, but it was like 2,000 people. There were no other fly fishers other than one teaching assistant. And now, college campuses have fly fishing clubs, and high schools have fly fishing clubs, and
Yeah.
seeing the young people getting into it, and seeing people from all walks of life, all different colors, um, more women in fly fishing. I think we have a long way to go for that, to get it even more diverse, but it's happening and it's exciting.
That's good stuff. And you seem to be reaching a whole slew of people with podcast. How has that been for you doing your own podcast? What kinds of things have you learned that kind of help you along in your journey as a fisherman?
Oh God, I learn something new with every podcast. I learn a ton of stuff from every new podcast I do. I mean, I'm always taking notes as I'm interviewing people, um, be because I'm learning so much, and I'm learning from my listeners too, because I have a mailbox where people ask questions.
Right.
So I'm learning what they want, what they're looking for, what confuses them. And I have a rule that I never have a guest that I who doesn't know more than me about the topic. So, I don't want to have a guest on there where I'm not curious,
Right.
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 about what they're talking about.
Yeah, that's so important. To be able to learn from them, and I think that
Yeah,
conversation gets you know what I mean. That adds to the authenticity of the conversation, which is so good.
yeah. I mean, I thought it was a dumb idea when somebody first suggested it to me. Um, I, Jamie Hathaway, who still edits and produces the podcast. Um, what was it, 11, 12 years ago? Whenever we started, I don't remember. I
Right.
said, he said, you should have a podcast. And I said, that's a dumb idea. And at the time, podcasts were kind of like old tech. Um, Podcasts came out, and then they kind of went into a period of eclipse when video and social media became more popular. It was old tech.
Yeah.
um, and then they kind of had a renaissance, in the past, I don't know, 10 years or so, 5, 10 years. um,
Right.
and I said, well, fly fishing is such a visual sport. What the hell are people going to listen to a fly fishing podcast?
Yeah.
It's video is the way to go. Come on, podcast?
Right.
No, that's a stupid idea.
I think that shows the skill you have in your teaching ability for you to be able to explain those things without visuals and answer those questions. I every time I listen to your podcast, I always learn something as well. And um, just kudos to you for being able to describe that stuff without throwing a fly line on the screen.
Right.
Yeah, and I think taking questions from listeners helps a lot because I'll have a guest that'll explain something, then I'll think about it and I'll say no, let's step back for a minute here and go over that again because I'm not quite sure people are getting it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
It's awesome. And I think too, like, since Ed and I started doing this, we were just like, let's start a podcast. It's so much fun, like, to engage with people in the way that we do and our guests.
yeah,
It doesn't even feel like you're working or doing anything. I don't know. At
no,
least
it's
for
just a
me,
conversation,
it's like,
right? It's just
yeah,
Right.
just
it's
bullshitting.
yeah,
Yeah,
the socialization, right? You get to bullshit with people, and it's great. I love that part
yeah,
of it.
yeah.
So that's fun.
Well, we would love to get up to your neck of the woods and fish in Vermont one of these days. I guess if we were coming out there to fish, let's live plan a 4-day, 3-night trip together. Kind of, where would you take us fishing? Where would we eat? Where would we stay? Things like that. Just 'cause I think one day it would be awesome to get up there.
Well, it depends on the time of year. If you were coming up in late April through mid June, I would say let's fish the Battenkill because it's an incredible wild trout stream. There are some very large trout in it. It's a difficult river, incredibly difficult river, and the fish population is not dense, so you have to move around a lot, and to
Yeah.
catch one of those big fish, you really have to meet most of the guys that I fish with know where all the big fish are. It's like,
Right.
that they know where they are, and
Yeah.
they've got, some of them have names. And then
Raising them like pets.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then once the water drops and gets a little, Bankill never gets terribly warm, but gets a lot of inner tube traffic and it gets low and very difficult, and the hatches aren't that great. I like to revert to, for trout fishing small streams. We have a lot of small mountain streams here, and that's a lot of fun. The fish are 6 to 10 inches.
We love that.
They're all wild, and there's you can go to a brook trout stream or a brook and brown trout stream or a brook brown and rainbow stream, depending on what you want to catch. And it's relatively easy fishing, mostly dry fly. And you go to beautiful places. So, um, other than that, summertime, I like to chase carp, but there aren't many in Vermont. I have to go over into New York State most of the time to find carp. We have good bass fishing. I have a Old Town Autopilot 120 kayak that has spot lock and all kinds of cool stuff, and I love
Cool.
chasing warm water fish. The other day I was up on Lake Champlain and we were just catching bluegills because I wanted to
Nice.
catch bluegills.
Yeah.
Good.
That's awesome.
You mentioned carp fishing. That's becoming kind of a popular thing, especially out here. Certainly, they're right down the road from me here. And that's something that I haven't done yet. I haven't experienced that. I've watched videos on it. But are you doing that often? Have you been doing that long?
As
What's your
often as I
advice for me as a
can.
new? Yeah. What's your advice for me as a new carp fisherman?
Oh boy, it's hard.
Right.
And you find that the people that are into it are people who have been fishing for a long time. It's not
Right.
something you want to send a novice off doing. It's really hard, but they're fascinating creatures, and every body of water they react differently. But man, they pull. What other freshwater fish gets into your backing most of the time?
Right.
Right.
I fished the South Platte. I was out there and I fished the South Platte for 3 days before I actually landed a carp. And I was with guys like Rick Mixel that know it.
Right.
Right.
But I had lots of targets, and it was fascinating.
Yeah, it seems like an incredibly cool thing, and I know that that's going to be something that, again, going back to those skunk days, I'm sure I'm going to experience a few of those
Yeah, and you have to
in my
find them in the
pursuit.
right mood. You have to pick your target. You have to find ones that are feeding, which is not always easy. A lot of times they're just moving around, and that makes it real frustrating and difficult.
Right.
Well, is there a favorite post fishing food establishment that you love to go to? Do you have a favorite post fishing meal?
Uh, well, I'm a big fan of duck and lamb. There's lots of good restaurants in this. Southern Vermont is a tourist area, so there are lots of great places to stay and lots of good restaurants.
Great.
Cool.
So it's not hard to find a good place to eat.
Good deal. Well,
Perfect.
we got to get up there and do some East Coast trout fishing. I've not done that yet, so I'm ready.
Vermont is not known for its hatches or trophy fish, other than the bat and kill at certain times a year. So you know a lot of wild trout, a lot of little streams, but it's not exactly a destination fishery.
Right. Well, it doesn't need to be. We do. That's my favorite kind. I'd rather go bushwhack a brook trout stream and get away from people and have,
Yeah, yeah,
hike and get out and do that
yep.
anyway. So, that's my favorite kind of fishing to do. Of course, I haven't bone fished yet or done any saltwater fishing either yet. So, those are all on the bucket list and probably might take over as my favorite kind of fishing.
Other addictions, yes. There are many
Yes.
different addictions in fly fishing.
And I think that's the great thing about it, the diversity of it and the
Yeah.
things that, the way that you can go about it. So, certainly that's it for me. Keeps me coming back.
Well, this has been awesome. Mind if we wrap this up with the GFW hot seat?
GFW hot seat? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
sounds like fun.
Welcome to the GFW Hot Seat, where the name of the game is to answer the questions. And the prizes are... Wait, who said we have prizes? All right.
All right.
Some fun questions.
What is one thing that you're currently celebrating in life?
My new vision, going through cataract surgery, my new 2020 vision without glasses is going to be awesome. That's what I'm celebrating.
That
It
is
is
awesome.
going to be awesome from a
Yeah.
fellow. Let's see, how do you put this? Yeah, from a fellow guy who can't see, who gets frustrated when the light goes down in the evenings.
Yeah.
Tying flies. That'll be awesome for you.
I'm
I'm
looking
glad
forward to
that.
it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're getting that. That's awesome. Tom, now there has been. We talked about the progress of social media and all that kind of stuff. Give us a piece of content, a book, a video, a TV show, if you do that thing, that you would recommend for our listeners. Something you've read or watched or seen, a piece of content that you'd recommend to our listeners.
Well, everyone should read The Longest Silence by Tom McQuain, because it's the best book of fly fishing essays written to date, in my opinion.
Okay.
He's just a brilliant writer, and nobody writes about fly fishing as well as Tom McQuain.
Beautiful.
What is your favorite fishing memory or one of them?
I hate favorite questions.
Okay.
It's the last place I was fishing.
Right on.
Perfect.
That's good. That works. What was the last place you fished? Catching bluegill?
Lake Champlain
Playing
for
catch.
bluegills and largemouth bass. And I don't even like largemouth bass that much, but I had a ball that day. They were really on. We found a concentration of them, but it's not my favorite fish. But I had a really good time catching largemouths and bluegills.
Okay. So just to piggyback that with another favorite, what is your what kind of fish is at the top of the list for you? I'm not going to even say favorite.
Anything I can sight fish for.
Sight fish.
So it might be
Okay.
trout, bonefish, striped bass, tarpon, anything where I don't have to blind fish.
Nice. Good. Tom, what's one piece of advice that you wish someone had given your 20-year-old self?
20-year-old self.
20-year-old self.
Oh, you're not as good as you think you are at fly fishing.
Nice.
I thought I was a real hot shot when I first went to Orvis, and then I saw all the other fishing school instructors, and then I went to the West Coast and saw people that could cast like, uh, you know, I had never seen before, and realized that I was not hot shit. I had a lot to learn.
The good old ego. Yes.
Yeah.
Bring that thing back to earth.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good advice.
What is your definition of community?
Oh boy, you're getting really touchy-feely with me. I'm not a very touchy-feely kind of guy. What is my definition?
You're handling it great.
What is my definition of community? People with a shared passion.
Good. Indeed. We'll take that.
Okay.
Our last question in our segment we call Conversations Between Guests comes from our last guest. His name is Grant Powell from a company called Temperance and Pen up in Minnesota. And his question to you was, where would you want your next fishing trip to be outside of the United States?
Cuba.
Ooh.
That would be a cool one.
Do tell. Why Cuba?
Because I love the people and the music, and the fishing is great. I've been there a couple times, going back in November. Yeah, it's
nice.
And having grown up in the '60s through the Cuban Missile Crisis, it's always been a place that fascinated me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so now we're going to ask you to provide a question for our next guest. What's a question that you would give to them?
What's going to be the next big thing in fly fishing?
Okay, cool. Awesome. What's going to be the next big thing in fly fishing? Cool.
Because I don't know. People ask me that all the time. I don't have a clue, so I'm hoping somebody else can answer it.
Answer that. Okay, cool. Good. That's awesome. That'll be for whoever our next guest is.
Who's your next guest, or don't you know yet?
We do know.
We do.
We'll tell you, but we'll scrub it. Our next guest is Stemmies Rule.
I know.
Stemmies are the best.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Does that change your question? Do you want to ask him something else?
He won't know.
He won't know.
No, he won't know. He's a incredibly traditional angler, and he fishes in barber jackets and
yeah,
right.
He's
the patches on the elbows, right?
All about style. And,
yes,
and
yeah,
the man's man. So
yeah.
Maybe his dream is the future of it. Everybody fishes in tweed.
Yeah, that could be. It could be
the next big thing. Tweed
and you can tell him I said that too.
That's great.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation.
Well, thanks, guys. It's been fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you for being on. And I know you probably have a quite busy schedule, but we really appreciate you being on and helping us, kind of grow the community and people look up to you in this fishing world. I know that's probably not something that you love so much to be that iconic guy, but it's true. And so, yeah, we really appreciate you being on here and getting to pick your brain a little bit.
Well, it's been my pleasure. It's always fun to do a podcast where I don't have to prepare.
Right. I know. The preparation part. Yeah. Good.
I know that you're easy to find, but why don't you let people know where they can get in touch with you and learn more about what you're doing?
Well, probably the Orvis Learning Center. Just Google Orvis Learning Center is a good place to go, or the podcast, the Orvis Fly Fishing Podcast.
Great.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll link all that in the show notes
Okay, great.
and make sure people send you in some questions. I know that people didn't send you any voice files in on your last episode, so we'll have to make sure people do that.
Yeah, I'm getting a couple in the past week or so. So
Good. You called people out and they hopped
They
too.
responded.
Oh yeah, they do.
Good.
They do.
That's great. Well, Tom, it's been great. Thank you. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and hopefully, someday we can fish with you. That'd be the ultimate dream.
That would
See
be
you out on
fun.
the
You have
water.
an open invitation, Ed and Reid. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Dude, that guy is a wealth of knowledge.
Unbelievable. That was a really fun conversation. I'm not gonna lie, dude. I was a little bit intimidated talking to such a well-known,
little starstruck.
Right? Yeah. But then he's just a normal dude. He's just another guy doing what he loves, and he's really good at it.
Yeah. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I mean, it's awesome to chat with somebody who's, I've watched countless numbers of his videos, and, to be able to chat with him and learn about just different skills and tricks and tips and thoughts that he has about going on the water and still being curious, and all of that is, it's amazing to see somebody be able to do that for such an extended period of time and actually do it at a high level like that.
Yeah, I think too that there's something about talking to someone who's been doing it for as long as he has, right? Working for Orvis for 45 years. Clearly the teacher mentor thing is really impressive to me. But to see his desire to continue to learn, you get to be older, and as you're considered one of the older people in whatever industry you're doing, whatever you're involved in, to see that kind of desire for him to continue to want to get better, to progress with stuff. He's doing progressing with technology and doing the podcast, and he's well versed in social media and all that kind of stuff, and understands the impact of all that, of all those things. And yet he just keeps learning about stuff and keeps, that desire, it burns in him, and it's cool. It's really awesome to see. And it's inspiring, as somebody who's, getting up there in age as well. It's inspiring.
Like he said on his podcast, just, he learns something from every guest that he talks to, and just, that's awesome. I mean, he's still constantly eating up new knowledge and digging in with different people on different topics and different fishing styles and different locations. And I agree. I think Cuba would be awesome to go fishing.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And there's always people who will change with the times, but there'll be some like pushback against it. Like, yeah, I kind of got to, but you don't get that sense with him at all. You know what I mean? Like, he's just like, embrace it, change, progress, all of it. I'm no, expert at anything, and he's kind of humble in that way, and it's kind of cool. That was really good. So Definitely. Yeah, and hey, an open invitation to go up there and fish with Tom Rosenbauer, that sure would be fun. That might move to the top of the bucket list. Go to the Catskills with Tom Rosenbauer. That'd be pretty awesome.
Heck yeah.
So yeah, he's had such an influence.
Hopefully we can make that trip happen.
So, right? Yeah. Well, that was a great one, dude.
I loved it. Looking forward to the next one too.
Absolutely, buddy.
I love you, man.
I love you too. We'll talk soon.
See ya.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening. Make sure to visit our website, guysfishingweekend.com, to check out the GFW merch, sign up for our newsletter, and learn how to get involved with the community. We appreciate you spending even a little bit of your week with us, and are glad to have you along on the journey. Stay legendary and happy fishing.